Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming and joining us for the learning of Torah Hashem Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. As always, we start with appreciation to TorahAnytime.com for giving us a worldwide stage, to Kol HaLashon for its global network, to YouTube for its fantastic reach, and to Torah Communications Network, pioneer in Arbatzis Torah, to our wonderful Zoomers, our subscribers, and those of you that are here with us at our flagship station, Hagada Gems of Fairways Lakewood. Today, we have a very special sponsor, my dear friend, Richard and Sharna Rosenzweig. Richard was once the president of my shul in the Hagada Gems of Staten Island. And what a lovely couple they are. They're sponsoring the shir for Hatzlacha, Bracha, Gesund, and everything wonderful for their wonderful family, including their daughter Serit Yehudit and her husband Yudah Yaleib, their daughter Sigal Batya, and their son Mishan Yitzchak. Hashem should bless them with everything that they need. If you want to sponsor a shir, 718-916-3100. That's 718-916-3100. rmmwsi@aol.com. Vayara likimes b'nei Yisrael. Hashem saw the b'nei Yisrael. Vayeda elikim. So although the Pashut Pshat is that he saw that Paro interfered with regular marital intimacy, that's what it says, Vayeda Elikim, Hashem knew what other people don't know. But the Shach, over 500 years ago, one of the Gurei Ari Zal, one of the great Talmidim of the Ari, quotes a medrash which is found in the Torah Shlema, that Vayara Lekim es B'nei Yisrael means that Hashem saw something wonderful about the B'nei Yisrael. And that is that even though they were falling apart, we know that each person had to do 600 bricks. If they didn't do 600 bricks, it says Perech. Perech is B'gematria 300. It says it twice. They had to do 600 bricks. If they were short a brick, they took a child instead. And Hashem saw that as soon as a Yid was finished his quota, he went to help his neighbor so that he'll be able to finish. And Hashem said, people that are there for each other in this way are royal geula. And it's interesting, it says Elikim twice. Elikim is Midas Hadin, Hashem is Midas Rachman. Although it says Vayar Elikim es B'nei Yisrael, Vayeda Elikim, even though it was Midas Hadin, we sank to the 49th degree of Tumah. We stopped circumcising ourselves. We worshipped their idolatry. But we had Achdus. It's reminiscent of the Dor HaFlaga that wasn't destroyed because we had Achdus. Rameir Shapiro, and again, I acknowledge tremendous hakaras hatov to Art School for putting out this awesome Haggadah from the lessons of Chachmei Lublin. Rameir Shapiro would say this over from the founder of Bells, Shar Shalom Bells. He makes such an observation of something we do twice a week. On Mondays and Thursdays, after laning, we have a series of Yiratzins. The Chazan stands by the Torah, says Yiratzim Ufnei Avinu Shebashamayim. The first one is L'chaynein Beis Chayenu, to reestablish the temple. The next one is L'rachem aleinu, limnoya mashkis u'magefa, to have mercy that there shouldn't be any destruction and plague. And the next one is Yiratzon for the Chachmei Yisrael, their wives, their children. And the next one is Yiratzon L'fnei Hashem, that we should be Nishma v'nispaser b'suras toivos, we should hear all kinds of news, mazel tovs and births. And then the fifth stanza is about all our brethren that are in harm's way and with difficulty. This stanza doesn't start with Yiratzon. It starts, Acheinu beis Yisrael, anasun matzar v'shivya, ask Sar Shalom Mebels, why doesn't that also start? Yiratzon ufnei Hashem, she'acheinu beis Yisrael, why doesn't it start with Yiratzon? He says, because if we're davening for all our brethren, that koyach ha'achdus ensures that it's an eis ratzon. You don't have to say you're ratzon. The fact that it's an act of achdus, Acheinu kol beis Yisrael anasun b'asar v'shivya, you know why it's called Acheinu? Our brothers. Because we all have a common Father in heaven. But says Sar Shalom Mebels, the fact that we're saying and davening for all our brothers, those that are in harm's way in the army, and those that are in the miklotos, and those that are in places with terrible anti-Semitism, Acheinu kol beis Yisrael, the fact that we're davening for all our brothers and sisters, whoa, we don't have to say Yiratzon L'fnei Avinu Shemayim. It's obvious that there's a Ratzon. Achdus brings such a Ratzon. This, by the way, this Esther knew. When Esther saw that there was a tzara b'Klal Yisrael, that we were threatened, lahashmid larag l'abed es kol Yehudim, her answer was, leich kenois es kol Yehudim. Go and gather all the Jews. That's the koyach of Achdus. And that's what it says. We all know that it says, Shivim nefesh yordu avoisecha mitzrayma. We went down with 70 nefesh. Now by Esav it says that they had sheish nefashos. But here it's 70, and it says nefesh in the singular. Because Klal Yisrael is one unit. We're one, that's the way we're supposed to be. In 1911, there was the famous Bayless trial. Mendel Bayless was accused of a blood libel, of a ritual killing. And it became an international event. And the Goyim brought scholars who scoured the Talmud for proof that the Jew considers the Goy a subhuman species. And they had all kinds of Gemaras. One of their main arguments was from the famous Gemara. The Gemara says that it's a Gemara in Yevamos, on Daf Samach Aleph Amud Aleph, Yisrael Kriyan Adam, ve'ein Akum Kriyan Adam. That a Yisrael is called an Adam, a man, and an Akum, a Goy, is not called a man. So they said, you see, they don't even think we're men. So the Rav of Moscow at that time, Rav Yaakov Meza, I had an uncle of Meza. Meza is an abbreviation, an acronym for Mizera Aaron HaKoyin. So anyway, Rav Yaakov Meza, with all of these questions, he sent out to the greatest Rabbanim of the time for them to, explain it. So he sent this question also to Rav Meir Shapiro, And Rav Meir Shapiro's answer was what they used in the trial. And it made a particular roishim on the judge, which was a big part in the fact that they cleared Mendel Bayless of all the charges. He said, it doesn't mean that a guy isn't a human. It doesn't mean that at all. Yisrael, the nation of Yisrael, Kriyan Adam, is called Adam in the singular. Ve'einakim Kriyan Adam. A nation of Goyim is called a nation. It's not singular. Said if a Russian would be put on trial, the whole Russian nation doesn't come to his defense. Here, Mendel Bayless is on trial, the whole Jewish nation comes to his defense because we're one unit. And that's what it means. And to elaborate, because the Bin La'itim elaborates on this, there are 4 terms for human. Adam, Ish, Gever, and Enosh. 3 of the 4 are pluralized. You have Anoshim, you have Gvorim, and in Tanakh you have the word Ishim. But it never says Adamim. Adam is not plural. That's why Adam is unique to a Jew. Because if it wouldn't be for this Gemara in Yevamos is very difficult. If anything, Adam is the most unfavorable description of a human. Adam means from the earth, a clod, a block of materialism. Why should Yisrael Kriyan Adam? We're spiritual. So you have the famous pshat that Adam also is Adama le'elyon. We're the likeness of the one on high. Now that's also unique by a Jew. Mahu racham af ata racham, mahu chanan af ata chanan. A good Jewish husband, a good Jewish wife is compassionate and gracious at home. You're not compassionate and gracious at home. You have to be like Hashem. You're not a mensch. That's what it means. Person is not a mensch. You're not a mensch. It's interesting that when Rav Meir Shapiro passed away, it was a big tragedy. He passed away at the age of 46 from a strep throat. He didn't have antibiotic. So at the time, Rav Moshe Chaim Lau, who was the father of the chief rabbi of Yisrael, Meir Lau, was the Rav of Pietrikov. And he was maspid Rav Meir Shapiro. And he said in his hesped that one of Rav Meir Shapiro's unique qualities was the koyach of achdus. Says in Yeshivas Lublin, there was Litvisha, there was Chasidisha, mamish, learning together in unison. He said, and that was his idea of Daf Yomi, that a Yid should be traveling from Eretz Yisrael and come to the port in New York, arrive in the shul, and they're sitting and learning the same daf that he was learning in Eretz Yisrael. And the same daf that somebody was learning in Amsterdam, and the same daf that somebody was learning in London. I remember feeling this koyach ha'achdus from the koyach of Rav Meir Shapiro when I had my big shir in Borough Park. I mean, I have a big shir now too, if you count everybody that watches all over different places. But when I had my live shir, we had 250 people on the 14th Avenue Aguda. There used to be by this shir, and you saw it on a Motzi Shabbos, there was a spudik, there was a streimel, there was a beaver hat, there was a Barcelona hat, there was a kippah sruga, there was a taxi driver's cap, the koyach of Achdus from Rav Meir Shapiro's Daf Yomi. The cousin Glover, Rosh Hashiva. He was Rosh Hashiva in Shivas Chachmei Lublin. He quotes the famous Gemara in the beginning of Brachas. Tells us over there, David HaMelech's incredible schedule. He had a harp by his bed, B'chatzos Laila, Akum, La'idus. And David HaMelech was up the rest of the night doing all kinds of things. In the morning, it says that his advisors came in and said, Amcha Yisrael tzrichim parnas. Your nation Yisrael needs parnas. So he said, L'chu hisparnasu zeh mizeh. Let them go and support each other. Let them go and support each other. So the pashtus is that one make a hat shop and one make a shoe store and let them support each other. But the cousin Glover said it's more than that. What he meant was L'chu hisparnasu zeh mizeh. Let them daven for each other. Because when you daven for a fellow Yid, and you also need it, you'll be answered first. That's the importance of davening for other people. You have a child at home, doesn't have a shidduch. On the Upper West Side, there's 25,000 plus that don't have shidduchim. Daven for other people. That's the koyach of Achdus. Person, his knee is hurting him. He has bone against bone. Trying to give a gel shot, a gel injection. How long is it going to last? Daven for other people. There are a lot of people that have knee problems. On this, in the Sefer Sheris Nosson, who was a Talmud of Rav Meir Shapiro, says not just davening, but if you help somebody in the area that you need, you'll be answered first. Say, for example, somebody is having shalom bayis problems, and he helps somebody else's shalom bayis. Somebody is lonely, and he works on giving comfort to another lonely person. Says the Sheris Nasim, Hu nenet chila. It's not just on davening, it's on doing. The koyach of helping another Yid. We're going to mention him later again in the shir. One of the greats of the previous generation, one of the greats of the previous generation was Rav Chaim Kreisworth. Rabbi Wein of blessed memory, who touched 1 million people with his learning, at least, was a Talmud of Rav Kreisworth. I remember him saying, when he became a Rav, that he doesn't want to do Gittin anymore. Because when he did his first get, if you do a get and you do it wrong and you make a mistake and the woman gets married again, her child is a mamzer for the next 100,000 generations. He said, Rebbe, I don't want to do Gittin anymore. I did a get the night before I couldn't sleep, the night after I couldn't sleep. So Rav Kreisberg told him, this is a gadol. Rav Kreisberg told him, so who should do Gittin? The one that's able to sleep? Who should do it? Truth of the matter is, I shouldn't be saying this because Moshe Meir Weiss is a wimp, and I won't touch a get ever. I never did a get. I don't have a stomach for it. But the Rebbe knew that Rabbi Wein had the stomach for it. He could do it. I'm so allergic to get that my father's mother was gassed in Auschwitz. Her name was Gittel. And although I had 4 daughters, she should forgive me, I didn't give the name Gittel. Okay, anyway, as far as because she died very young, but I didn't give the name Gittel because it had in it the root of get, and to me, I just couldn't do it. But so, to understand who Rav Chaim Kreiswith was, because if you understand it, then you'll really appreciate this story. In Rav Chaim Mintz's wonderful sefer, Zekenecha V'Yomrulach, he tells over that Rav Ruderman was once visited in Baltimore, in Eretz Yisrael, by Rav Chaim Kreiswith. Rav Ruderman was a gaon. He had one Seder a week where he reviewed 250 blot a week. And as they were talking, they were varfing, throwing around Gemaras from all over Shas, and Reb Chaim Kreiswith was throwing around Yerushalmis. And later on, Rav Ruderman said in wonderment, wow, I know Bavli, but look how he knows Yerushalmi. Now, Rav Ruderman was one of the Gdolei Olam. And that's how he talked, and he waxed amazed at Reb Chaim Kreiswith. When Reb Chaim Kreiswith was young, during the time of the Nazis, he tried to escape to Poland. At least for a while, Poland was an escape. He didn't make it. They arrested him and they brought him to Nazi headquarters. In Nazi headquarters, the commandant, who was a ruthless Jew-hater, said to one of the officers, go take him outside and shoot him. Don't shoot him here. I don't want a dead Jew in the building. So he takes out young Rav Chaim Kreiswith, the future Gadol Rebbe of thousands. And Rav Chaim Kreiswith remembered the Gemara, afilu cherev chadam unechas al tzavar shalodam ein tzyayish min rachamim, al tzyayish min rachamim. Even if there's a sharp knife on your neck, don't give up. And he was davening and davening. As they get outside to the woods, the officer whispers to him, my wife and children, I don't know where they are. Please pray for them. He said, I'm going to shoot to the ear and you run. And he shot 2 shots to the ear and he ran and he was saved. And we have a Rav Chaim Kreiswith today. Yeah. So Rav Chaim Kreiswith said, I want to tell you why I think I deserved such a miracle. He said this by a grand dinner for Ezer Mitzion. Ezer Mitzion is a well-known organization. Today they have concerts, Ezer Mitzion. At an Ezer Mitzion dinner, Reb Chaim Kreiswith said that before he became a Rebbe in Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin, he was a young Rebbe in yeshiva in his small town. The yeshiva didn't have a dormitory. The boys slept on the floor, on the cold floor. He said he was a Maggid Shir, and he had to prepare Shir. He was given a bed. He said that 1 month, there came to the town a big Talmud Chacham, Reb Shayla Mishane. The reason why they called him Reb Shayla Mishane is because he was constantly reviewing Mishnah. And they couldn't find him a bed. So Reb Meir Shapiro gave him his bed for months and slept on the floor. And he says it wasn't easy sleeping on the cold floor and then preparing shir. It wasn't easy. But he gave up his bed, and he feels that that's why Hashem spared his life. That's doing for others. The opportunity to do, and of course we all know that charity starts at home. People, when they think about doing for others, they think about strangers. The first person you have to do for is your husband, your wife, your parents, your children. And that's why Chesed Tatzim Amavis. That's why when preparing for Pesach, we shouldn't forget about Kimcha de Pischa. Giving money to people that can't afford Pesach is very expensive. Giving money to people that can't afford Pesach. By the way, I just let my Zoomers know that I did send $1,600 to Beitar before Purim, Rosh Chodesh Adar, and I plan to send $1,600 again to Beitar for Pesach, Rosh Chodesh Nisan next week. Getting low in the funds of Beitar. It says in Hagada that Yaakov Avinu went down onus al pi adibur, forced. Now, literally, this means through the command of Hashem. In other words, he didn't want to leave Eretz Yisrael to go down to the Eretz Shtufei Zima, to the land of promiscuity and kishuf and tumah of Mitzrayim. But Hashem told him to go down, so he was honest al pi adibur. However, once again, the Kozl Gover Rosh Hashiva says that there's another meaning here. If you remember when Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, Avram Avinu, that your children will inherit the land, Avram Avinu had the temerity to ask Hashem for a sign. Vameida, how will I know? And it says this is one of the reasons that his descendants had to go down to Egypt. So that's on us. We were forced to go down to Egypt al pi adibur because of a mistake in words. Of course, there's another meaning. We know that we went down to Mitzrayim because Yosef spoke a dibara, evil tidings. And that unleashed, of course, the jealousy of the brothers, causing him to be sold, which necessitated that we had to be sold as slaves. So again, it was honest al pi adibur. A third example of this is, remember when Moshe Rabbeinu saw a Mitzri hitting a Jew, and he killed the Mitzri, and then the next day he saw Dasan and Aviram fighting, and he said to them, Rasha, because somebody raises his hand at another person, the Rasha, lama saka es reyecha. And they said, and they informed on him, you're thinking of killing us like you killed the Egyptian? And they publicized. That's why they came to arrest Moshe Rabbeinu. If not for a miracle, they would have decapitated him. That's why he called his son Eliezer, Elikei Avi Be'ezri v'yatzileni micherev Paro. Moshe Rabbeinu said at the time 3 words. It's like he saw a light bulb. Moshe Rabbeinu said, Achei noida hadavar. Now I understand. And as the Chavetz Chaim said, Moshe Rabbeinu wondered, the children of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, why are they being collectively punished so terribly? Why are they suffering for over a century? The Shibud was 117 years of suffering. Why? Usually Hashem is Erech HaPayim. He's long-suffering. As soon as the last Shevet Levi died, whammo! He said, but now that I see that there are Dalei Torah, informers, that would inform on another Jew, now I understand. Onus al pi adibur. Words. In Yiddishkeit, words define a person. In America, words, sticks and stones can break bones, names can never hurt me. Gossip columns, news reporters speaking terrible things about other people. Words are cheap. In Yiddishkeit, the mouth is the window of the soul. I told you many times that to me, one of the most important Gemaras in Shas is the Gemara in Sanhedrin that says, Adam la'amal pe nivra. A person is created for the toil of the mouth. Quotes a pasuk in Mishlei, Ki ukaf alav piyu. A person should have a saddle on their mouth. A person was created for the toil of the mouth. And this is the reason why we were subjected to Paro. Pei Reish Ayin Hey. Do a little anagram with Paro. It spells Pera. Bad mouth. For failing in our mouth, we were subjected to the one who had a foul mouth. Who's Hashem? We should listen to him. I don't know him. But there's a reason why we were subjected to him, because we failed with our mouths. That's why it's called Pesach. Pesach is Pesach. The mouth learns how to speak. Sach, Samaches is speak. The mouth learns how to speak. Pesach, which is the birth of the Jewish people, has its emphasis on Hagada, to relate. It's all about talking. Talking defines a person. People, they try to do all kinds of things, but they don't learn how to talk. That's why by Sheva Brachas we say, Kol Chasan v'kel Kala, the voice of the Chas and the voice of the Kala. How they speak endearingly to each other. Should bottle it. And that's the way later on, wife calls the husband at work. Oh, it's you. I told you not to call me during the day. Somebody else calls up, yes, what can I do for you? That's not Kol Chasan v'Kol Kala. And that's not Adam la'amo pen nivra. By the way, remember when Moshe Rabbeinu came down to Mitzrayim and he started being involved in the inn first, in the lodging, and he delayed the circumcision of his son? A snake almost swallowed him alive. If Tzipora wouldn't have grabbed the flint stone and mauled the child, Moshe Rabbeinu would have been dead. Why? I mean, he didn't do it past the 8th day. But since we didn't circumcise ourselves in Egypt, it says, Kishameis Yosef, Efer Bris Milah, the leader had to be perfect. in that area. And it's the same way, since we messed up with words. When Hashem said to go to the Jews, and Moshe Rabbeinu said, Lashon Hara, V'hein lo yaminu li, they won't believe me. He should have said, Pen lo yaminu li. Maybe they won't believe me. But he just said definitively, V'hein lo yaminu li. So Hashem said, okay, show them this sign. Throw down the stick, a venomous snake came and chased Moshe. To let him know that you're saying Lashon Hara like the original snake. God doesn't want you to have knowledge like him. And then he said, take your hand out from your jacket, and it was full of leprosy. You deserve leprosy. Mitzora, you were Mitzirah. Why? Because since we were being punished because of speech, Moshe Rabbeinu's speech had to be perfect. Always the leader has to be perfect in the area. That's why the foil of Haman was Esther. Haman was a descendant of Esav who was perfect in Kibbud Av V'Eim. And therefore his foil had to be someone who was perfect in Kibbud Av V'Eim. Who? Esther. She never sinned in Kibbud Av V'Eim because when she was conceived, her father died, and when she was born, her mother died. She never sinned in Kibbud Av V'Eim. The leader has to be perfect. But the sin is a sin in speech. The sin is a sin in speech. Probably that's why it says Perech is Perach. That Paro came with a deceptive, shrewd, soft voice, come rebuild Egypt. And then after they did a lot of bricks, he said, tomorrow you have to do that many. But why would a Perach? It's to remind them that they didn't have a Perach. They didn't have us. You have to have a soft voice. You know, when the Ramban wrote his famous letter, the Igeres HaRamban, that's probably the most famous letter ever written in history. Some people read it every day. Some people read it once a week. He starts off that all your words should be benachas, lekol adam, to every person, bekol ace, at every time, even times of high pressure. But that was the first thing he sent his son, because that's the Gemara. Adam la'amal pen ivra, that defines a person, how they talk. You know, one time, Rameir Shapiro was sitting with a group of Talmidei Chacham. Rameir Shapiro was such a novel thinker. And he said over a pshat. And somebody in the crowd said, that's a Mefurshim album. Obviously, Rameir Shapiro didn't know it was a Malbim. He would have said it over in the name of the Malbim. So he said to him softly, excuse me, you don't mean Malbim, you mean Malbin. He was hinting to him, HaMalbin pnei chaveroi barabim ein lo chelik le'olam haba. To embarrass someone in public by saying that, it's as if Rameir Shapiro is stealing the Malbim's pshat or telling everybody that the Rameir Shapiro didn't know a Malbim. What are you doing? You have to think about what you're saying. Somebody hears this story will say, well, wasn't Rameir Shapiro guilty of rebuking him in public? So we have to know that it could be that he felt that everybody had to know that you can't do this. That's another subject. It reminds me of something that happened once in Bluzhev. I remember the Friedrich Bluzhev Rebbe. Friedrich Bluzhev Rebbe was one of the great war heroes. He lived through the Nazis. They couldn't break his spirit in the camp. He circumcised children. It's amazing what he did in the camps. So I had a schia that at the end of his life, he did the upsharon for my Bechor, Nehemiah. So there's a story that in the Bluzhev Beis Medrash, somebody went up to daven for the Amid on Shabbos, and he started repeating words. Shoichanad, Shoichanad. Now, we don't repeat words. So somebody said, this guy doesn't know how to daven. So by the Kiddush, the Bluzhev Rebbe said, no, he has to learn not to repeat words, but the person that yelled out is a shofech dam, is a murderer. We have to watch how we talk. Ooh. Do we have to watch how we talk? Another Talmud of Ramesh Shapiro, who's famous in my day, was Gaon Olam, Reb Pinchas Hirschsprung. So Reb Pinchas Hirschsprung, when he was young, he was exposed to the Gadol Ador, Paisik Ador, Reb Chaim Oizer Gudzinski. Pinchas Hirschsprung had I think also, I'm not sure, but I think also an encyclopedic memory. Reb Chaim Oizer had a completely encyclopedic memory. He used to visit people's houses, and if they were missing a page in the sefer, he would fill it in. He had an encyclopedia. Anyway, they were talking, and Rav Chaim Oizer mentioned that Gemara was on a certain daf. So Rav Hirschsprung said, no, I think it's on this daf. So Rav Hirschsprung said, Macy Sefer V'nilzeh, let's bring a sefer and check it. So Rav Chaim Oizer said to him, look, I'm already an old man, forgetful, don't embarrass me. Rav Hirschsprung said later on he went home and he saw that Rav Chaim Oizer was right. But he didn't want to embarrass Rav Hirschsprung. That's how Gedolim acted. Here's another Talmud, another member of Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin was the great Rav Shmuel Vosner. So listen to this psak of Rav Shmuel Vosner. This is an incredible psak. Incredible psak. A kohen was asked to be the kohen by a pidyon haben. When it's a firstborn, you redeem the first child. When he was speaking to the mother confided to him that many years before her marriage, when she was a young girl, she had a fling with somebody. And they had a baby. They gave it away, and her husband knows nothing about it. So really, this child is not a firstborn. Oy vey, what do you do? To say it could ruin the marriage, because she never told her husband that she was with another person, and she had a child. On the other hand, you have to make a bracha. Asher kitshanu b'mitzoysev v'tzivanu al pidyon haben. How can you make a bracha levatala? So he delayed the pidyon haben, and he went to ask Rav Shmuel Vosner a shayla. And Rav Shmuel Vosner paskin, you need a gadol ador to paskin this. Rav Shmuel Vosner paskin that they should do the pidyon haben. He says, Madach by a soita, in order to save the marriage, to prove that she was innocent, we write Hashem's name and erase it. Erase Hashem's name. Be Yadayim. So to say Baruch Atah Hashem Alikeinu Melech Haolam Asher Kitshanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu al pidyon haben, it's true. Hashem did sanctify us and command us a pidyon haben. Not in this case, but it's to say it in order to save the marriage. You could do that. I mean, you need a gadol ador to paskin this. Again, you see, one of the major declarations of the Haggadah is v'aymer lach b'damai chayi, v'aymer lach b'damai chayi. That's two bloods, Dam Pesach and Dam Milah. Those are the two, right? The blood of the Korban Pesach that we took the idol of the Egyptians and we slaughtered it, right? Doing tshuva, and we circumcised ourselves, even old people. So that double blood saved us. V'amalach b'damai chayi, b'damai chayi. The Heilige Chayzim Lublin. The Heilige Chayzim Lublin, Zech Tzadik Kodesh L'Rachas Chusi Yagan Aleinu, said, there's another kavanah in b'damai chayi, b'damai chayi. Daim also means quiet. Like it says that when Nadav and Avihu were executed by Hashem, Vayidaim Aaron. Aaron was silent, he didn't say anything. You want to live? Learn to zip it. Learn not to answer back. Remember I told you that the people that have this talent are those that uphold the world. It says in the pasuk, Toila eretz al blima. The world is suspended by blima, by misha, bailam piv b'shas mariba. Somebody that knows how to be quiet. Rav Shmuel was, the Kazakh lover says that there's a Sefer Charedim. The pasuk says loisane al riv, and he says that the Sefer Charedim says loisane al riv can be translated, you shouldn't answer back in a case of controversy. Riv is an argument. He says when you don't answer back and you let it slide and you look away and you diffuse it, you're mekayim the mitzvah daraisa of loisane al riv. And this year, I've told you that it's the custom when a Jew lives a long, ripe life. The custom is to ask him, Bameh harachta yomim, so that we could emulate. In what merit did you live long? And I've given you examples in the past. They asked Rav Moshe, Bameh harachta yomim, Rav Moshe Feinstein, and he said, "Man ganz Leben hab ich keinmal nicht getan weit zu Menschen." My whole life, I never caused another person pain. Boom! He didn't say Torah. Man ganz Leben hab ich keinmal nicht getan weit zu Menschen. That's a person that wants to live long. They asked Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky, he also lived into his 90s. Bameh harachta yomim. He said, "I never told a lie, and I tried not to hurt somebody." They asked this question to Rav Shach, who lived way beyond all his colleagues. Bameh harachta yomim. He said, because he always benched from a bencher. That's what Rav Shach said. They asked the great Reb Elya Lapyan. You know that Reb Elya Lapyan used to speak to crowds for more than 4 hours. He was so hypnotic, people were able to sit for 4 hours. He used to speak so long, and he said, "I'm stopping because my feet are hurting me." He was standing so long. They asked him, Bameh harachta yomim, and he said from his bar mitzvah he never got angry. You don't get angry, that allows a person to live long. So they asked Rav Shmuel Vosner, who lived till, my grandfather also, my maternal grandfather, lived till 101. I asked him, he was in my house for 2 weeks when he was 98, and I videoed him for 3 hours. I asked him, Bameh Harakta Yomim, and he said it was the kibbud of a aim that he did for his father, Reb Yitzchak. He said another reason, but we're not going to go into that now. So Reb Shmuel Vosner lived till 102. So they asked him, Bameh Harakta Yomim. You know what he said? He said, I was always mevater. I looked away. I was maver al midosav. I didn't answer back. I didn't insist on my rights. And that's why I lived so long. So Rav Shmuel Vosner said, that's B'domaye chayi. B'domaye chayi. And they say that that's pshat. You want to know what a person is made of? You want to know the quality of the person? You're not going to be able to tell when things are going okay. You could tell the quality of a person when times are tough, in times of stress. And he brings a raya from, it's such a clever raya. Va'arin mahu, by the machlokes of Korach. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, Va'arin mahu, what is Aaron kisalinu alav, that you're complaining about him? So they interpreted Va'arin mahu, if you want to know what Aaron is, look at him kisalinu alav, when they're complaining about him. And look how he's quiet, how he's soft, how he's gentle. That's what you're going to know about the person. Now, by the way, this that the Chayzim Lublin says about the Amalach b'damaya chayi, the Klozberger Rebbe also translates it this way, but with a different meaning. It's a famous story that when the Klozberger Rebbe opened the Stiebel in Williamsburg, and was going to give his first drasha. It was before Pesach, and Yidden came from all over to hear what is a man going to say who lost a wife and 11 children in the war. What's he going to say? And he opened up with this, and I say to you, Hashem, with my silence I live, that I don't complain against you. With my silence I live. Same thing by Aaron. She lost his 2 tzaddikim of children, Vayidam Aaron. Before we get to the last thought of the evening, I want to thank again my dear Talmidim, Richard and Sharon Rosenzweig, for sponsoring tonight's shir, for the well-being of their families, Sirit Yehudit and Yudah Yaleib, Segel Bat Yisegel, and Mishan Yitzchak. They should have Atzlacha in all in Yonim, together with Richard and Sharna. Again, if you would like to sponsor a shir, we don't have a sponsor for next week's Hagada Shir. 718-916-3100. You could text me, 718-916-3100. 360 is a regular sponsor. Diamond sponsorship is 540. rmmwsi@aol.com. Also, I'm encouraging people to join dailygiving.org. My dear Talmud Irving Fishbaum told me that somebody who needed a shidduch decided to give $2, and he found his shidduch. tzedakah tatzim amaves, aser b'shvil shetisasher, ma'abed tzedakah, ma'abed shalom. Many reasons to join this. Remember, you're not just giving $1. You're joining over 24,000 people that are giving $1. And each of their organizations, whether it's a time, by Ne'ilam, Oyel, Hatzalah, Misaskim, Zaka, TorAnytime.com, every day they give another organization over $24,000 made up from everybody's dollar. dailygiving.org. The Haggadah announces V'esamoleinu elu abanim, and our toil in life, that's our children. This resonated by me because it happened by me in my shul in the Haggadah of Staten Island many times on Rosh Hashanah. Many times on Rosh Hashanah, I was always the makri. I always had the same perfect Baal Tekeya. My good friend Ruvain Pollack is one of our Zoomers. And, I timed him, I concentrate, and every time the time is up, I go like this. And around the bima would crowd like a bunch of children. And some of the children would take their hands and do it also, and it would make it hard for me. So Reb Chaim Kreisworth relates that he was in the Beis HaKnesses HaGadol in Antwerp on Rosh Hashanah. A huge group of children surrounded the bima for Tkir Shofar. And the Baal Tekeya was getting nervous from them. And he said to Rav Kreisworth, maybe ask them to go away. Rav Kreisworth said no. He said, why do we blow by the bima? The Sefer HaChasidim says we blow by the bima in order to synthesize with the blowing the schus of the Torah. Therefore, to blow together with children, and we could synthesize the pure schus of children that didn't sin, we're not sending them away. As Amoleinu, our work is Elu Abanim, these pure children. Rameya Shapiro quotes from a Yerushalmi in Ksuvas, Periches Halacha Yud Aleph, that Shimon ben Shetach made 2 takanas. One is a famous takana mentioned in Bavli, that he enacted yeshivas all over for small children. And the other is he instituted Tumah Yeshana. What's Tumah Yeshana? Old Tumah. That if you have a metal keli and it's Mekabel Tumah, and you break it, once you break it, it's not a keli anymore, the Tumah goes off. If you repair it, the old Tumah comes back. Says Rameya Shapiro, these 2 halachas are linked. Shimon Shetach is showing what impression is made on a young child, that will stay always. Just like the Tumah Yeshana, you could break it, but you fix it, the old Tumah that it started with comes back. That's why, remember we said that the kruvim have to be made together with the kapiris, one piece. You can't attach it later on. You can't raise the child however you want and then later on try to attach him to the Torah. It doesn't work. Rameya Shapiro was especially a champion of the chinuch of girls. Ger Rebbe, Chofetz Chaim supported Sarah Schneerer, Zechron L'Bracha, Zchus Yagen Aleinu, Zecher Tzedekes L'Bracha, Zchus Yagen Aleinu. Rameya Shapiro has a very novel pshat. It says that Paro said, Kol ben ayiloid hayoret hashlichula. every child, boy that's born, you should cast into the Nile. The kalabas techayin, and the girls should live. Everybody says that that's also diabolical, because if the girls will live and there's no boys, they'll end up assimilating. But Ramesh Shapiro says an even more profound pshat. Paro said, the sons I allow you to throw into the sea of Torah. As long as kalabas techayin, as long as the girls assimilate in Egyptian culture. Because if the girls will assimilate in Egyptian culture, Klal Yisrael will be ruined. You need to have the Beis Yaakov. So we have to make sure that we don't only talk to the boys at the Seder. We surely have to talk to the girls, the future mothers and future bubbies of Klal Yisrael. The future Akeres Habayis. The future Tzofia Halichos Beiso oversees the ways of our home. As always, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Again, I want to thank ArtScroll for the great gift of this Haggadah. I shared with you so many thoughts from their amazing Haggadah on the Chachmei Lublin, ArtScroll that changes Yiddishkeit with sefer by sefer, thousands by thousands. May they be blessed. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful night and a wonderful Shabbos.